Okay, guys, we're in Unit 1. Go to page 22. We're continuing on and finishing up the lesson here. So our goal today is we will be writing equations of lines, and we're going to be talking about parallel and perpendicular lines. Now, remember, to be parallel of something, that means it's following the same exact angle, even on a graph. Parallel lines would actually never intersect, and their slopes would actually be exactly the same. So parallel lines have the same exact slope. What about perpendicular lines? Now, perpendicular lines, if we were to graph them, perpendicular is like a wall with a floor. It intersects at a 90-degree angle. Now, how do their slopes compare? Their slopes are actually opposite reciprocals of each other. What does that mean? The word opposite means the sign is different. If one's positive, perpendicular would be negative, and vice versa. And the word reciprocal means it would be the number upside down. So, for example, 2 over 3 versus 3 over 2. So those are reciprocals of each other. So here's some examples of slopes that are perpendicular. So if I asked you what is perpendicular to 3/4, you would tell me it's negative 4/3. You're changing the sign and flipping it upside down. If I were to ask you what's perpendicular to a slope of 7, you would tell me it's negative 1 over 7. We switch the sign to opposite. Remember, where do we get the 1/7 from? Remember that the whole number 7 is the same thing as 7 over 1. 7 is 7 over 1, so that would be 1 over 7, okay? And then there's a little bit of a tricky one. What is perpendicular to a slope of 1? That would be negative 1. Again, you're following your rules. It would be, changing the sign, opposite sign, and then 1 is 1 over 1, and 1 over 1 upside down, still 1 over 1, which is 1. So keep these in mind for when we go over the following examples. So what's going to happen here? Again, my main goal today, the main idea, is to write an equation of a line. Now, it says we're going to write an equation of a line with the given condition. We're going to write the answer in both slope-intercept and standard forms. I'm going to cut that out. We're not going to convert to standard form in my lesson just because I'm trying to save some time here on this video. So we're just going to stop at slope-intercept form. In the future, anytime you have a homework and a review, and especially a test, please make sure you are reading the directions carefully, because sometimes it's very specific what kind of form they want the answer in. So here, my answer, I want it in slope-intercept form. Remember, that's y equals mx plus b. So let's look at A. The given condition, it's saying it's going through a point, 1, negative 3, and it's parallel to this equation, y equals blah, blah, blah. So what I want to do here, if I want to write an equation of a line, remember I need a point and a slope. Well, I got my point here, right here. What about my slope? Well, that comes from the other equation. So it says it's parallel to this equation here. If we're dealing with slope, what is the slope in this equation? The slope in this equation is always the number in front of x, or in other words, it is always the coefficient of x. So it's 6. So I would say my slope I'm going to be using is 6 because it says parallel. And remember, we said parallel slopes are the same exact slope. Now, don't worry about this. Cross that out. That is irrelevant to this problem. That's the y-intercept. We don't need that. The only thing we need from the equation that's given to us is that slope 6. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start writing an equation. And again, my goal is slope-intercept form. So if I have a point and a slope, I'm going to be using the point-slope formula. I would suggest you memorize it because I am not a fan of writing formulas over and over a million times. All right, so let's plug into the formula. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. Now let's convert this to slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. First thing I'm going to do, those double negatives, change it to y plus 3. And then I'm going to distribute the 6. 6 times x, and then 6 times negative 1 is minus 6. And then lastly, just one simple step to get y by itself. We're going to subtract 3, and we're just going to do it, subtract 3 from the negative 6. Remember, it is we're subtracting 3, not 3x, so it's got to subtract from the constant minus 6. Don't subtract it from the 6x. They're not like terms. All right, so let's get to our answer. Y equals 6x minus 9, and that is done. I have met my goal, which was to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Okay, let's do another one. So this one, we're going through a point 0.85. And this one is perpendicular to this equation. So what is the slope in this equation written here? It is negative 4. So since it says perpendicular, what is perpendicular to negative 4? Remember, perpendicular means we have to change it, change the sign, so it'll become positive, and then 4 upside down is 1/4. So our slope we want to use is 1/4. And we're going to use this guy. My point will be my x1, y1 again, and I'm going to be using this point slope formula again. So y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. And now I'm going to start converting that over to slope-intercept. I'm going to distribute the 1/4. 1/4 times x, and then 1/4 times negative 8. So that's 1 times 8 is 8, divided by 4 is 2. Next, last step, well, let's get that y by itself. We want to add 5. So y equals 1/4 x plus 3, and we're done. We have met my goal of writing an equation in slope-intercept form. Okay, let's keep going. Let's get some more practice. So this, in letter C, we're going through the point 7, 1, and we are perpendicular to this equation. Okay, let's focus in on this equation. What is the equation's slope? In front of the x is a minus. That means my slope it's showing is negative 1. Ignore that plus 3. So what's perpendicular to negative 1? We discussed this way back in the beginning of this video. The perpendicular to negative 1 is positive 1. So we're going to use that and go into our point slope formula now. Point slope, y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. So let's get rid of the parentheses. We're going to distribute the 1 times x and 1 times negative 7. And then we're going to add 1 to both sides. Okay, and then we're done. Y equals mx plus b. So this is the point in the lesson where I typically, after 3 examples, I start to go a little faster. But don't panic. Remember, you can always pause and rewind. All right, letter D. Again, we're just getting repetition in at this point. There's really nothing new on this problem. All right, so going through the point 2,9, and we are dealing with parallel to y equals 3x minus 2. So the slope here is 3, and it says parallel, so we will be using the 3. Let's go into my point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. We're going to distribute the 3, so 3 times x, 3 times negative 2. And then we're going to add 9 to the minus 6 to get y by itself. And it's done. Okay, letter E throws a little curveball at us. So we are going through the point 3,1, and it does say parallel to the equation that's showing. What is the slope in that equation? It's kind of a trick question I just asked you. We don't know yet. That's in standard form. That's not in slope-intercept form. In order to tell what the slope is, it's got to be in slope-intercept form. So what we need to do is get y by itself, and that's real simple. We would just add 4x to both sides. In other words, we're moving it to the right, changing the sign. So if we take a look at this equation, what is the slope here? The slope here is 4. So, and since it says parallel to that, that means we will be using 4. So now we're going to go to our normal procedure. We're going to go to the point slope form and then convert it to slope intercept. So y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. So let's distribute and get rid of those parentheses. So 4 times x, and then 4 times minus 3. And then last step, add 1 to the minus 12 to get y by itself. And that's done. Okay, last one, and then you guys will be good to go on your own. This is a really trick question. Letter F says, through negative 6, 2, and perpendicular to x equals negative 2. What could that possibly mean? We're missing a y in this equation. So what would that be? Well, we didn't really focus too much yet on positive and negative vertical and horizontal lines. We didn't focus too much yet on. But this actually would be a vertical line if we were to graph it. Whenever you're missing a variable in an equation, if it says y equals a number or x equals a number, that means it's either vertical or horizontal. So perpendicular to this means instead of x equals, we would have y equals. And then what would we put? Take a look at the y coordinate right there, and that's what you're going to put for your answer. So again, I'll kind of explain again what I did here. I know that this guy here is a vertical line because it's missing a variable. So perpendicular to vertical would be horizontal. So if it's going from x equals a number, perpendicular means it would have to turn into y equals a number. And then it's pretty simple. You just look at the point and go, if it's y equals, it's got to be the y equals the y coordinate. Okay, guys, so that's it for my lesson, and you guys should be good to move on to the homework for it.